Okay guys, some of you want another coronavirus video, so I just made a small poll some days ago. Let's see the results. Alright, 50-50, so let's do both, starting with COVID-19 treatments. Over 650,000 cases have been reported so far, and though governments and people are taking more and more action, the virus still spreads. So we need to find ways to eradicate this virus, or at least find some sufficient treatments, and there are reasons for hope. In the past weeks, scientists all over the world have achieved several breakthroughs. And this is what we're going to discuss today. My name is STEINEK, and today we'll go on a journey to find possible COVID-19 treatments. First things first, there are currently no available vaccines or fully established antiviral therapies against SARS-CoV-2. The studies we will discuss in this video need some confirmation or are still going on. You can compare modern science to your favorite TV show. You are invested, but it takes some time until a new study or season comes out. The only difference is that instead of dramatic plot twists where main characters fall into love with each other, we have bar plots. Okay, let's start. In order to defeat our enemy, we have to know our enemy. So what do we know about SARS-CoV-2 so far? SARS-CoV-2, which causes COVID-19, is an enveloped, single-stranded RNA virus. Envelope means that the virus has an outer wrapping, which originates from the host cell, and this helps the virus to survive and also infect other cells. The term positive sense single-stranded RNA is a bit more complicated to explain, but we just need to know that the genome of SARS-CoV-2 is RNA-based. So how does this virus infect cells? SARS-CoV-2 likely uses spike glycoproteins to bind to host cells which produce ACE2 and TMPRSS2. Once it has entered the cell, the viral RNA is released and different proteins are synthesized. For example, an RNA polymerase is generated, which makes copies of the viral genome. At the same time, other so-called structured proteins are also being made and then cleaved by proteases. These structured proteins are later assembled together with the viral genome, and the virus is released and can infect new cells. Okay, so that's how SARS-CoV-2 looks like and how it propagates in host cells. When we want to find a sufficient treatment against COVID-19, we need to tackle components which are involved in the life cycle of the virus. There are two general ways to identify new treatments. We can either recycle pre-existing drugs which have been developed against other viruses, or we can design new drugs from scratch. Both approaches have their advantages and drawbacks. If we use pre-existing drugs, for example, we have to spend less money on drug development and drug refinement. However, these drugs would not be tailored to only act against SARS-CoV-2, and therefore they are not that specific. So instead we could design new drugs which counteract different components of the virus. On one hand, these drugs would be highly specific, but they would also take longer to develop and we would not know the side effects. Okay, so what have scientists done so far? Most studies focus on pre-existing drugs. You see, the great thing is that SARS-CoV-2 has two very close relatives, SARS and MERS coronaviruses. Since the genetic information is highly similar in some regions, drugs which might act against SARS or MERS coronaviruses might also act against SARS-CoV-2. Okay, let's tackle the virus from different angles. We can start by trying to prevent the virus from entering the host cell in the first place. Here, a drug called CAMOSTAT MESYLATE is currently being tested. This drug is normally used to treat pancreatitis, and it has been shown that it is also quite effective to prevent SARS infections. But there is more. In March 2020, it has been shown that CAMOSTAT MESYLATE is also effective in preventing the entry of SARS-CoV-2. But what does this drug precisely do? Well, it blocks the aforementioned TMPRSS2 protein, which is required for the entry of the virus. So that's great news. By using CAMOSTAT MESYLATE, we can block the entry of the virus. Since previous studies, however, have only focused on isolated lung cells and not patients, it is still debatable if this drug is efficient to treat infections at all. And now we come to today's second candidate, FAVIPIRAVIR. FAVIPIRAVIR is a nucleoside analog, meaning that it mimics the structure of guanine, one of the building blocks of DNA and RNA. You see, we've already discussed that SARS-CoV-2 uses a RNA polymerase in order to make copies of its own genome in infected cells. For this, the RNA polymerase requires nucleotides. Nucleoside analogues are very similar to nucleotides, and so the RNA polymerase tries to incorporate them instead and gets stuck. In this manner, the genome cannot be copied anymore and we can prevent the virus from spreading further. FAVIPIRAVIR has been developed against the influenza virus, but it might also be effective in treating SARS-CoV-2 infections. And right now, COVID-19 patients are being recruited for clinical studies, so let's see how that goes. Very similar to nucleoside analogs, we can also use nucleotide analogs. And here we find another very promising SARS-CoV drug, REMDESIVIR. REMDESIVIR has been developed to combat the Ebola virus, and it also acts by hindering the virus from making copies of its own genome. This drug has been successfully used in a clinical phase 3 study for treating Ebola infections, and it also has been shown to act against MERS-CoV infections. In a recent study, this drug has also alleviated COVID-19 infections. And in some days, another 2 phase 3 clinical trials should be completed, and I will post the results once they have been released. Alright, the next drugs we will discuss are already being used to treat patients. Interferon alpha together with ritonavir and lopinavir. Interferon alpha are normally used against a variety of different viral infections, while lopinavir and ritonavir normally act against HIV infections. If you want to know more about HIV treatments, you can just click on this video here, or it should be somewhere here in reality, but I think it's cool to move my thumbnails, so I keep doing that. So how do lopinavir and ritonavir precisely work? They are both protease inhibitors. Protease inhibitors are a class of antiviral drugs which, as you could guess, prevent proteases. Proteases are normally used by the virus to cleave other viral proteins to make particles. By blocking proteases, the virus is not able to reproduce anymore and cannot spread. A study has shown that ritonavir and lopinavir are both effective in treating early infections. Here the drugs reduced overall patient mortality. In advanced stages, however, the drugs did not improve anything. The efficiency of this treatment also remains quite controversial, as its original target, the HIV protease, is very different from the coronavirus protease. But we have seen that there are several ways to hinder the virus from spreading. So the final question is, when will we have developed a vaccine against SARS-CoV-2? Well, our 35 different academic institutions and companies are currently trying to develop a vaccine. We can talk about the different types of vaccines in another video, but they all share a common principle. They all work representing the immune system, a part of the virus, and once the body is being infected, the immune system is very effective in fighting off the pathogen. The problem with vaccines is that they take a very long time to develop, and we need a lot of testing before they are ready to be used. Therefore, it is not very likely that a SARS-CoV-2 vaccine is being developed in this year. On long-term, the development of a vaccine could eradicate this virus, which would also shrink the anti-vaccination community. There are of course many other treatments which are currently being evaluated, but I just picked out some of the highlights. So with that, I'll pass some questions to you. What do you think about the current coronavirus pandemic? What are you doing to prevent further spreading of the virus? Are you isolating yourself, or are you helping the community in some sense? Next time we'll talk about the evolution of SARS-CoV-2. But for now, I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and if you have done so, please like this video. If you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell button. And with that, I'll see ya.